There's only one. If it's one of her kids, they're going to name the kid's name. If someone says, in the same way in European art, when someone says that's a Picasso, no one asks Picasso who, because their name has become equated with an art form. However, in this country, the control over who was visible was dictated by white men from universities. That's hegemony. That's control over history. The same way, and so, like to make fine art in Florentine Italy, it has a job description. It's got to be monumental. It's got to stand for something big. It's got to be static. It means that you cannot use it for anything else. Art for art's sake. It's strictly art. It had to be made of precious materials. In that day, marble is a precious material, for example. We don't think about it now because you go down to Hobby Lobby and you walk down aisle 7. Nobody burns tobacco in the acrylic paint aisle anymore. All right, the way we used to have to give thanks for our pigments and the like. Right, you just go to, I'd love to actually just go there and have a tobacco burning ceremony just for my acrylics someday. Just to watch people wig out, all right? But because it was a precious material. If you were a painter in 1600, paint costs a lot. There were people who controlled color. And that includes in glass, but as well as in paint. And if you were one of these people who knew the formulas for that cobalt blue, and you gave that secret away, they'd kill your family. If you left the country, they'd put a contract on you because what you knew controlled big money because color was precious. I'm sorry? So there were patrons, yes, who controlled what artists could do what. So this is last week when we were talking about Botticelli being in the pocket of the Medici family because he couldn't afford all that material on his own. So the Medicis had hegemony over who would be recognized as an artist. And so you get a basket maker. I mean, now, how precious is grass? Bear grass, bracken fern. How precious is it? Now, most people don't even know what it is. They see it as weeds. There's a woman whose name is Dazzolali, who made these baskets. And there is an emporium in Nevada and California who gave it a name, so it became something special. They called it a Dejacoup basket. It's an Oya. And it has, now in a basket, they have what they call a warp count and a weft count. The warp are the fibers that create the foundation of the basket, and then the weft is what you weave in between the foundation to create the body. The same way if you look at a rug. If you've ever seen a rug put up on a loom, like Navajo rugs, the warp is what the man strings. The weft is what the woman weaves in it. Now, there's some Navajos now where the women do both, but in an earlier time, men actually strung the loom. All right, that's the warp, that's the foundation, and then the weft is what's woven back and forth. Now, her baskets have such a high weft count. I've seen this when I worked for a gallery downtown. People would come up and they would touch the basket and they would close their eyes, holding a little child because it had such a sensuous quality. It had such a fine weft count, it was almost like touching cloth. There were other weavers, Washoe and other, that were as good as Dazzolali. But she became the darling of an emporium who were among the first people to document not only who made the basket, but the warp and weft count, when it was made, what the materials were, who her husband was, all of this other information that became part of provenance. That's hegemony. The ability to control the information that is put out there. As a curator, you're challenging hegemony. It is a political act, as well as a cultural act and a professional act. And in some ways then, as part of this hegemony, that you are trying to, in many ways where there have been, museums themselves are often seen as these antagonistic things by tribes. They are places where conflict is going to occur because Indians have been under glass. There's wrong stories, untrue stories, or half-told stories have been told there without the voices of the people themselves. So they are seen as these arenas for conflict. So how do we, through what we do, create these forums where there is a more collaborative type of effort that's occurring? Not only with us and the museum or institution that we work with, but also the various individuals in our communities, or for that matter, if we do a biennial, biennale. So we're also, within this, looking at the available technologies that we can utilize to best tell the story. That includes an awareness of digital communication to enhance awareness, and also think about the beliefs as we're doing our research that are going to guide us in this quest for reality. It's one of the things I noticed at NMAI. They had an exhibit by Morisot. And what was astounding is that people walked by all of these static images and they didn't stop. But they had a video, which was a Nana Bojo story that was animated in his style of painting. And you could watch people standing there like kids in front of Saturday morning cartoons. It had sound. It was moving. It wasn't static. It was telling a story, a really cool Nana Bojo story. That there are times that technology does help us, but don't use it just because it's there. It has to enhance what we're doing. So even aware of what we're doing and the ability to use mass communication and digital communication, no matter what beliefs are guiding us as we do our research. And now we are going to talk then about research paradigms. Now, a paradigm is not 4 nickels. That's a pair of dimes. A paradigm is the sets of assumptions that we have that guide our behavior. They are the things that we accept to be true as a proven, tried and proven way of doing something. It's how we view the world. And paradigms are, they change constantly. Because at one time, the way that we would have thought, for example, about molecular biology in the year 1940 is very different than the way it's viewed now, based on new knowledge becoming available to us. But what paradigms do is, based on these sets of assumptions and beliefs, they guide the way we do our research. They guide our actions, and they actually give us a framework for doing research. This is important to consider as a curator, because believe it or not, at least 60% of what you do as a curator is research. The exhibition and the planning and the like, that's the tail end. That you've got to know what you're doing first before you present it. And that any research that we do represents a paradigm that we are using, whether we know it or not. The assumptions that we start our research with, whether they're institutional or cultural, guide the way we do the research. So even if we're not conscious of it, we are still operating under sets of beliefs. And that since these paradigms actually deal with the beliefs that we hold, the assumptions that we have about what is real, they are in some way based in theory. That's why we talk about curatorial theory. And if they are part of theory, they are intrinsically value-laden. What intrinsic means is that it is something that actually resides in that concept, is part of that concept. Values are part of our research because we are making distinctions about what we think is important or not, what we think is true or not, and even orders of importance. We're making decisions. So there are several terms we're going to examine, among them being ontology, epistemology, methodology, and axiology. Now, ology generally refers to the study of something. So anthropology, the study of anthro. What's anthro? That's archaeo. All right, that's the study of the past. All right, you're close, because in the United States, archaeology is considered part of anthropology, whereas in Great Britain, archaeology is a separate discipline. Anthropology, in essence, is the study of primates, of which we are. We are primates, but so are chimps. So a subdiscipline of anthropology is primatology, or what they call biological anthropology, where you study evolution. But there is also the study of linguistic, the study of languages, that follows within anthropology, cultural anthropology, in particular dealing with human societies. So ontology looks at theories of the nature of existence. What exists or can be said to exist?